I opened the door and my heart stopped. A small child, maybe 4 years old, was curled up on the cold concrete floor outside my studio. His tiny jacket wasn't enough to cover his body, and dried tear tracks lined his cheeks. "Hey buddy, wake up," I said softly, gently shaking his shoulder. He stirred and his big brown eyes looked at me like I'd just saved his entire world. "Uncle, I'm cold." My throat tightened. "I'm Peter, a simple dance studio owner making my way through life in this middle-class neighborhood. Being an orphan myself, I knew exactly what loneliness felt like. But this was someone's child. Someone who was probably searching for him right now. "Where are your parents?" I asked, guiding him inside. He hesitated before opening his mouth. Daddy's really busy. He can't see me." I wrapped him in a blanket on the couch and started making hot chocolate. "His name was Milo," he told me when I asked. Simple name, innocent kid. Hearing him talk made my chest tighten with emotion. I handed him the hot chocolate and sat beside him, trying to understand how he'd ended up here. "Milo, how did you get here?" I asked gently. I ran away from home. Daddy's always busy. I wanted him to look for me," he said in a small voice, then lowered his eyes. My heart sank. This child just wanted attention, wanted love. I tried to make him feel comfortable, but I didn't know what to do. Police? Social services? But seeing the fear in his eyes, I stopped myself. Maybe I could keep him for one night and figure things out in the morning. Night fell slowly. Milo had worn himself out and fallen asleep on my couch. I adjusted the blanket and looked out the window. Outside, under the streetlights, I could see silhouettes of people searching for something, carrying flashlights. Suddenly, I heard a car pull up outside my studio. I carefully looked through the window. A sleek black car had stopped, and several security guards quickly got out, checking the area. And then a man emerged. Tall, sharp suit, expensive watch, but his expression held sheer terror that no amount of money could buy. He was saying something to his guards, gesturing frantically. One guard pointed toward my studio. Maybe someone had seen Milo heading this way. The man, presumably his father, didn't wait and headed straight for my door, knocking hard, desperate. I opened the door and he rushed inside, his panicked eyes scanning the room until they landed on Milo. "Milo," he whispered, as if all his fear had been released in that 1 second. He came inside and dropped to his knees beside the child. "Thank God, son. Are you okay?" I observed him. This was probably the CEO I'd occasionally heard about in the news. Harrison Hale. Ruthless, powerful, cold reputation. But right now, in this moment, he was just a terrified father who'd found his child again. Milo was still sleeping, but Harrison gently stroked his hair, closing his eyes as if trying to control his breathing. Then he looked at me and my breath caught. His eyes held both gratitude and relief. You kept my son safe," he said, his voice carrying an emotion I never expected from such a powerful man. I don't know how to thank you," I nodded awkwardly. He was sleeping outside alone. I brought him in. Harrison buried his face in his hands for a moment, trying to regain his composure. I went crazy when I found out he was missing from home. We searched the entire area. "He's safe," I said, quietly, a bit scared but safe. Harrison looked into my eyes, and in that moment something unspoken connected us. Something more than gratitude. "What's your name?" he asked. "Peter," I answered. "Peter," he repeated as if memorizing the name. "I'm Harrison Hale, and I'll always be grateful to you." The weight of the moment settled between us. I could see him struggling with his emotions. This powerful businessman reduced to a vulnerable father. His hands were still trembling slightly as he touched Milo's forehead, checking for any signs of harm or distress. "How long has he been here?" Harrison finally asked, his voice hoarse. "Maybe an hour before you arrived. He was already asleep when I found him," I explained, keeping my voice low so as not to wake Milo. Harrison's jaw clenched. An hour, an entire hour my son was alone on the streets. The self-blame in his voice was palpable, cutting through the air like a knife. I wanted to say something comforting, but what could I possibly say to a man who was clearly drowning in guilt? Instead, I just stood there, giving him space to process everything. The studio felt smaller somehow with his presence filling it. He wasn't just physically imposing. There was an energy about him that commanded attention even in his most vulnerable state. I found myself studying him despite trying not to, noticing the way his expensive cologne mixed with the scent of night air, the way his perfectly styled hair was slightly disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. Does this happen often? I heard myself asking before I could stop the words. Harrison looked up sharply, and for a moment I thought I'd overstepped. But then his expression softened into something that looked like shame. No. Never. Milo's never done anything like this before, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I thought he understood that I work hard for him. For us. The unspoken truth hung in the air between us. Understanding wasn't the same as accepting. A 4-year-old child didn't care about the reasons why his father was always absent. He just knew that he was alone. I glanced at Milo's peaceful sleeping face, wondering what kind of desperation drove a child so young to run away from home. What kind of loneliness made him choose a cold concrete floor over his own bed. He asked me if you'd come looking for him, I said softly. That's what he wanted. He wanted you to search for him. Harrison's face crumpled at those words. He turned away, but not before I saw the tears gathering in his eyes. This powerful CEO, this man who probably commanded boardrooms and made $1,000,000 sizz without flinching, was crying over his son's pain. I was at a meeting, he whispered, more to himself than to me. An important merger discussion. My assistant came in and told me Milo was missing, and everything stopped. Nothing else mattered. Not the merger. Not the millions at stake. Just finding my son. The raw honesty in his voice struck something deep within me. I'd spent my entire life alone, never having someone who would panic over my disappearance, never experiencing that kind of desperate love. And here was this man, who had everything, realizing that none of it meant anything without his child. He's safe now, I repeated, not knowing what else to say. Harrison nodded slowly, finally composing himself. He carefully lifted Milo into his arms, and the boy stirred slightly, instinctively curling into his father's chest without waking. As Harrison stood, he looked at me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. Peter, I need to know more about what happened. Would it be okay if I came back tomorrow, to talk properly? Harrison tried to carry Milo out, but the child woke up, his sleepy eyes finding his father. At first there was relief in his gaze, but then guilt and sadness took over. Daddy, Milo said softly. Harrison pulled him into a tight embrace, but I could see Milo wasn't fully reciprocating. He was stiff, holding back his emotions. Son, why did you come here? Do you know how scared I was? Harrison's voice held a desperation that Milo was probably hearing for the first time. Milo's face filled with sadness. You don't spend time with me. You're always busy. Meetings, phone calls. I wanted you to search for me, to show that I matter too. Pain shot through my chest. This child just wanted his father's attention, wanted love. And Harrison, he genuinely didn't realize how alone his child felt. Harrison's expression cracked. I watched guilt, regret, and pain cross his face, emotions he probably never showed in the boardroom. I'm sorry, he said, looking carefully at his son. I'm so sorry, Milo. I didn't realize you felt this way. But Milo turned his face away. You always say sorry, but you don't change. You still go back to the office. Harrison visibly flinched. He was speechless, not knowing what to say. I could see he was genuinely hurt, but he didn't know how to properly reach his son. I cleared my throat, breaking the awkwardness. Maybe you two need some time. Alone. But Harrison looked at me as if he needed help, as if he was drowning and I was his only lifeline. Please. If you could stay. Milo's comfortable with you. I paused in shock but then looked at Milo. He was watching me as if I'd made him feel safe for the first time. How could I refuse? All right, I said slowly. Harrison breathed a sigh of relief. He sat down next to Milo, this time more gently. Milo, I know I'm busy, but it's because I want to give you everything. The best school, the best life. I want you, Milo interrupted, his voice small but clear. Not money, not toys, just you. Harrison's face completely broke. I could see the tears he was desperately trying to control. He hugged his son again, tighter this time, as if he'd never let him go. "I promise," Harrison whispered. "I'll change. I'll make time for you." Milo hesitantly returned the embrace, and the moment was so raw that I looked away to give them privacy. After a while, when Milo had calmed down a bit, Harrison prepared to put him in the car. But as they were leaving, Harrison looked at me. "Peter," he said, speaking my name as if it meant something important. Can I meet you tomorrow? I'd like to talk with you about something." I was confused but nodded. "Yes, of course." Harrison gave one last look, grateful, intense, and then left with Milo. After they left, my studio suddenly felt quiet and empty. But Harrison's presence was still here, his scent, his energy, and the way he'd looked at me. I sat on my couch and wondered what I'd gotten myself involved in. But the truth was, my heart was still beating a little faster, and I didn't understand why. The night stretched on as I tried to process everything that had happened. I found myself replaying moments. The way Harrison's voice had broken when Milo rejected his apology. The desperate way he'd looked at me for support. The weight of his gratitude when he'd thanked me. I'd spent years building a quiet, simple life for myself. My dance studio was my sanctuary. The one place where I felt I had purpose. Students came and went, parents dropped off their children and picked them up. But I'd always maintained a professional distance. I'd learned early on that getting too attached only led to pain. But something about tonight had cracked that carefully maintained wall. Maybe it was seeing my own childhood reflected in Milo's eyes. That desperate need for connection, for someone to notice you existed. Or maybe it was witnessing Harrison's raw vulnerability, seeing a powerful man brought to his knees by love for his child. I walked to the spot where I'd first found Milo and knelt down, touching the cold concrete. What kind of loneliness drove a child to sleep here? What kind of pain made him choose this over the comfort of his own home? My phone buzzed, startling me out of my thoughts. A message from an unknown number. "This is Harrison. Thank you again for everything tonight. I'll come by around noon tomorrow if that works for you." I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back a simple "that's fine." Sleep didn't come easily that night. I kept thinking about the weight of Harrison's gaze, the way his hand had trembled when he touched his son's hair, the brokenness in his voice when Milo had accused him of never changing. I thought about my own past too. The group homes, the foster families who never kept me long enough to matter. The years of feeling invisible. I'd built my entire adult life around never needing anyone, around being self-sufficient and independent. But watching Harrison and Milo tonight had reminded me of something I'd tried to forget. Everyone needs someone. Everyone wants to matter to somebody. Morning came too quickly. I went through my usual routine mechanically, shower, coffee, opening up the studio, but my mind was elsewhere. What did Harrison want to talk about? Why did he need to see me again? Part of me wondered if I should have said no, should have kept my distance. Getting involved in their lives felt dangerous somehow. Like standing too close to a fire. I could already feel the heat, but another part of me, the part I usually kept locked away, wanted to see him again, wanted to know if that connection I'd felt last night was real or just my imagination playing tricks on me. At 11:30, I found myself checking my reflection in the studio mirror more times than necessary. Ridiculous. This was just a conversation, nothing more. Harrison probably just wanted to formally thank me or maybe discuss having Milo come for dance classes. That had to be it. Nothing complicated. Nothing that would disrupt my carefully ordered life. But even as I told myself that, I couldn't shake the memory of how Harrison had looked at me, like I was something precious, something important, like I mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning I was cleaning my studio when the door opened. Harrison had returned, but this time Milo was with him and both looked different somehow. Harrison wore casual clothes instead of a suit, and he seemed nervous. "Peter," Harrison said with a genuine smile. I want to properly thank you. And Milo has a request." I looked at Milo, who was smiling shyly. "What's the request, champ?" "Uncle Peter, will you teach me to dance?" Milo asked in a sweet voice. "I really liked your studio. And you're kind." My heart melted. This child had called me kind. Such a simple word but so meaningful. Yes, I can teach you," I said, then looked at Harrison. "I'll pay, obviously." Harrison said quickly. And I want Milo to spend time with you. With you he opens up, feels comfortable. I saw the sincerity in his eyes. He genuinely wanted Milo to be happy, even if it meant sending him to someone else. All right, I finally said. But payment isn't necessary. Milo's a good kid, I'd be happy to teach him. Harrison's expression softened. You're different from other people, Peter. My cheeks warmed. I awkwardly started scheduling classes. Over the next few weeks, Milo came regularly. His confidence grew with each session. He was learning dance steps, and I could see he genuinely enjoyed it. And Harrison, he sometimes stayed after classes. Initially, he'd pick up Milo and leave immediately, but gradually he started spending more time. He'd lean against the wall observing, smiling when Milo perfected a move. I noticed his gaze when I taught Milo to spin, when I laughed while encouraging him, when I patiently corrected his mistakes. A softness appeared on Harrison's face that probably no one else had ever seen. He didn't seem like a distant CEO anymore, just a proud father. One day after class, when Milo went to get his water bottle, Harrison approached me. Peter, Milo's seemed happier these past 3 weeks than he has in a long time, he said quietly. And he started listening to me too. I've been spending time with him at home now. I smiled. That's good, Harrison. Milo just needed your presence. Harrison looked into my eyes. And for a moment something unspoken hung between us. You made this possible. I'm serious. Without you. You're doing this yourself, I interrupted, feeling uncomfortable. I'm just helping. He smiled hesitantly. Still, thank you. When they left that day, I noticed my heart was beating faster. Harrison's presence made my studio feel different. Warmer. Less lonely. The next day, Harrison invited me for coffee. Casually, as if it were normal. I hesitated. I don't know. Please, he said with softness in his voice. I want to talk with you properly. Just the two of us. And I said yes. At the cafe, we sat face to face. Harrison stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, as if searching for words. Peter, I don't trust people in my life, he finally said. Why not? I asked softly, genuinely curious, because most people want something. My money. My influence. Business connections. He paused and looked at me. But you've never asked for anything. You just helped. My throat tightened. I don't want anything, Harrison. I just want Milo to be happy. He smiled. And it was real. Vulnerable. Exactly. That's why being around you feels easy. Natural. My heartbeat quickened. What was this? This feeling? We talked about Milo. About life, about loneliness. Harrison confessed how messy his divorce had been. How his ex-wife had used Milo as a pawn. And how he'd buried himself in work to avoid feeling the pain. But now there's Milo, he said. And you've shown me that I can do better. Be a better father. I felt overwhelmed. Harrison was so open, so real. He wasn't a powerful CEO right now, just a person trying to fix his life. You're already doing better, I said quietly. Harrison touched my hand on the table, lightly, briefly. But that touch was electric. Thank you, Peter, he whispered. And when I went home that night, I told myself, this is just friendship, gratitude, nothing more. But when I closed my eyes that night, I remembered Harrison's smile, his voice and that touch that still lingered on my skin. And I knew I was lying to myself. The days that followed blurred together in a strange, new rhythm. Harrison started coming to the studio more frequently, sometimes even without Milo. He'd bring coffee, always remembering that I took mine black with 1 sugar, and we'd talk while I stretched or organized equipment. Our conversations meandered through territory I'd never explored with anyone. He told me about growing up with impossible expectations, about building his company from the ground up, about the loneliness that came with success. I found myself sharing things too. My years in foster care, the way dance had saved me, the dream of one day expanding my studio. You should do it, Harrison said one afternoon, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. Expand, I mean. You're incredible with kids. You could help so many more. Money doesn't grow on trees, I replied with a laugh. But his expression turned serious. I could help with that. No, I said firmly, surprising myself with the force of it. No, Harrison. I won't take money from you. Instead of being offended, he smiled. See? That's exactly what I mean. Anyone else would have jumped at the offer. The moment stretched between us, charged with something I couldn't name. His eyes held mine for a beat too long, and I found myself looking away first, my pulse racing. Milo's progress was remarkable. In just a month he'd gone from a shy, uncertain child to someone who beamed with confidence. But more importantly, the relationship between father and son had transformed. Harrison had cut back his hours, started attending Milo's school events, even learned to cook simple meals so they could have dinner together. You did this, I told him one evening as we watched Milo practice a routine. No, Harrison said softly, his shoulder brushing mine as we stood side by side. We did this. That word we sent warmth flooding through my chest. When had I become part of their story? When had this stopped being about me helping them and started being about us? I was falling. The realization hit me suddenly, completely terrifyingly. I was falling for Harrison Hale and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The question was he falling too? Or was I just imagining the way his gaze lingered, the way his hand found reasons to touch mine, the way he seemed reluctant to leave at the end of each day? As they prepared to go home that evening, Harrison turned back at the door. Peter, he said, and something in his voice made my breath catch. Same time tomorrow? Same time tomorrow, I echoed, and the promise felt like so much more than just scheduling another class. Over the following weeks, the friendship between Harrison and me developed naturally, effortlessly. He became more relaxed around me, sometimes bringing coffee for me, sometimes staying longer after Milo's classes to chat about everyday things. But I noticed the small details, the way he focused intensely on me when we spoke, how his eyes seemed to track my every movement, how he always found some excuse to stay just a little longer in my presence. And truthfully, I was enjoying his company too. He made me feel less alone. Milo's birthday was approaching and Harrison called me one evening. Peter, I want to plan a party for Milo, he said, sounding uncertain, but I don't really know how. My assistant used to handle these things before, but I want to do something meaningful myself this time. I smiled into the phone. Would you like me to help? Yes, he answered immediately. Please, I can't do this without you. We started planning together. We went to the mall to buy decorations, decided on cake flavors, selected games that would keep 4-year-olds entertained. Harrison seemed more relaxed than I'd ever seen him, genuinely enjoying these simple tasks. You make everything seem so uncomplicated, Harrison said as we were choosing balloons. But you understand what truly matters. My face grew warm. I understand that children don't need fancy things. They need genuine moments. Harrison looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You know, Peter, spending time with you has become the best part of my day. My breath caught. This was a confession. Subtle but unmistakable. Harrison, I said cautiously, but he smiled and changed the subject. The party day arrived and everything went perfectly. Milo was radiantly happy, and watching him smile brought tears to Harrison's eyes that he tried to blink away. Later, after all the guests had departed, Harrison, Milo, and I were cleaning up balloons and decorations. Milo grew tired and fell asleep on the couch, and Harrison gently covered him with a blanket. He came back and sat beside me, quiet, contemplative. What's wrong? I asked, reading his expression. He looked at me hesitantly. Peter, I sometimes wonder what I would have done without you, with Milo, with myself. My breath caught in my throat. Harrison, I'm being serious, he interrupted, turning his body slightly toward me. Since you came into my life, everything has gotten better. Milo is happy. I'm happy too. For the first time in a very long time. My heart pounded hard. I searched for words but found none. I could see something else in his eyes, something that went beyond friendship. He moved closer. Very close. Peter, he whispered, his voice low and earnest. I feel something for you. All the time. And I don't know if this is right or wrong, appropriate or inappropriate, but I can't ignore it anymore. My entire body froze. This was a confession. An admission of attraction. Harrison, I managed to say, but my voice barely emerged. He slowly took my hand, gently, hesitantly. If this makes you uncomfortable, please tell me. I, I don't want to hurt you or pressure you in any way. But I don't know how to ignore these feelings anymore. I stared into his eyes, seeing sincerity, vulnerability, and something else that mirrored what was hidden inside me. I feel it too, I finally whispered. But I'm scared, Harrison. His expression softened. Why? Because I'm an orphan, I confessed, lowering my eyes. I've never felt like part of a family, never properly held on to anyone. And you and Milo, you've both become so important to me. If something goes wrong, Harrison gently cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to look at him. Peter, nothing will go wrong. I would never hurt you. Milo loves you. And He paused, carefully choosing his words. I love you, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart completely stopped, then began racing. Tears filled my eyes. Harrison, I whispered back, and then he gently touched my cheek. Soft, tender. I closed my eyes and felt his warmth. But then I carefully stepped back. I need some time, I said, my voice trembling. This is all happening so fast. I don't want to hurt you, but I also need to be clear about my own feelings. Harrison nodded with disappointment, but his eyes showed understanding. I understand. I'll wait, Peter. However long you need. He carefully picked up Milo and prepared to leave. At the door he looked at me one last time. Good night, Peter, he said softly. Good night, Harrison, I replied. After he left, my studio suddenly felt incredibly empty. I sat on my couch, burying my face in my hands. My heart was still remembering his touch, replaying his confession over and over, and I knew I had already fallen for him, completely. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. I love you. 3 simple words that had the power to change everything. I'd heard people say them in movies, read them in books, but never had anyone spoken them to me with such raw honesty. I walked to the window and stared out at the empty street. The spot where I'd first found Milo seemed like it belonged to another lifetime, though it had only been a few months. Everything had changed since that night. My routine, my perspective, my heart. Part of me wanted to run after Harrison, to tell him I didn't need time, that I knew exactly what I felt. But another part, the part that had learned to protect itself through years of disappointment, held me back. What if I wasn't enough? What if I couldn't be the partner he deserved, the father figure Milo needed? I'd spent my entire life on the outside looking in, watching other people build families and connections while I remained alone. The idea of actually having that for myself felt simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Sleep was impossible that night. I lay in bed replaying every moment, the way Harrison's eyes had darkened with emotion, the tremor in his voice when he'd said he loved me, the gentle way he touched my face as if I were something precious. By morning I'd made no decisions, found no clarity. I went through the motions of opening the studio, teaching my morning classes, but my mind was elsewhere. My phone buzzed with a message from Harrison. No pressure, just wanted you to know I meant every word. Take all the time you need. I stared at the message for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. What could I possibly say? That I was drowning in feelings I didn't know how to process. That the thought of losing him and Milo terrified me more than anything. Instead, I simply typed, "Thank you for understanding." The next few days would test everything I thought I knew about myself, about love, about taking risks. And somewhere deep inside, I already knew what my answer would be. I just needed the courage to say it out loud. Over the next several days, I deliberately kept my distance from Harrison. I avoided his calls, kept my text responses brief. I was confused, frightened. I'd never been this attached to anyone before, and the feeling terrified me. But Milo's classes continued. When Harrison came to pick him up, he remained polite, respectful. He maintained the distance I'd requested, and that hurt even more than I'd expected. One afternoon, Milo asked after class, "Uncle Peter, are you and Daddy fighting?" My heart sank. "No, champ. Everything's fine. But you don't talk to each other anymore," Milo said sadly. "Daddy's quiet at home too. I want things to be like before. I hugged him, trying to control my emotions. Everything will work out, Milo. I promise. But I didn't know how to make that promise true. A few days later, Harrison sent me a message. Please, I need to speak with you. Just once. I hesitated but finally agreed. He arrived at my studio, but this time he looked different. Exhausted, slightly disheveled, as if he hadn't been sleeping properly. Peter, he said, his voice strained. I want you to understand that I'm not wasting your time. I'm completely serious about my feelings. I nodded cautiously. I know that, Harrison, but you're afraid, he interrupted. And I understand that. Because I was afraid too. When my marriage fell apart, when Milo's mother left, I decided I would never let anyone into my life again. Just Milo. That was enough. He paused, struggling to find the right words. But then you appeared, he continued. You kept my son safe. You made him happy. You showed me I could be a better father. And I can't imagine my life without you now, Peter. Tears welled up in my eyes. Harrison, I'm not trying to pressure you, he said quickly. If you don't want this relationship, that's fine. But I don't want your fear to stop you. Don't let your past control your future. My throat tightened. But what if I hurt you or Milo? What if I can't be a good partner? Harrison took my hand firmly this time. Peter, you're already perfect. Milo loves you. I love you, and we could be a family. If you'd just give us a chance. I broke down crying. All the emotions I'd been holding back, loneliness, fear, hope, came pouring out. I love you too, I whispered. I've been so scared to admit it. But I love you, Harrison. Relief and pure joy flooded Harrison's eyes. He pulled me into a tight, warm, safe embrace. Thank you, he whispered in my ear. Thank you, Peter. We stayed like that for a while, holding each other. When we finally separated, Harrison held my face in his hands and kissed my forehead. Gently, lovingly. I'll take care of you, he promised. Always. And I finally felt safe. I finally felt like I was home. We decided we would take things slowly, get to know each other properly. But the commitment was there. The trust was there. And when Milo found out, he was so happy that he hugged us both, giggling with pure joy. Now you're my Papa, Peter, Milo exclaimed excitedly. And in that moment, the empty space inside me finally filled. I was part of a family. For the first time in my life. The days following our confession felt like living in a dream. Harrison and I moved carefully, testing the boundaries of this new relationship, while making sure Milo remained our priority. We had dinner together at Harrison's place, a sprawling penthouse that somehow felt more like a home when I was there. I met Harrison's small circle of trusted friends, people who looked at me with curiosity at first, then with genuine warmth when they saw how Harrison lit up around me. One of them, Marcus, pulled me aside at a gathering. I've known Harrison for 15 years, he said quietly. I've never seen him like this. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The words settled into my chest with a mixture of pride and responsibility. I was changing someone's life, just as they were changing mine. Milo's transformation was equally remarkable. The sad, lonely child who'd run away to get his father's attention had become confident and secure. He talked about his days at school with enthusiasm, showed off his improving dance skills, and most importantly, he smiled constantly. One evening, as I was teaching Milo a new routine, he suddenly stopped mid-spin and looked at me seriously. Papa Peter, will you always stay with us? He asked. The question caught me off guard. Harrison, who'd been watching from the doorway, stepped forward, his expression tense as he waited for my answer. I knelt down to Milo's level and took his small hands in mine. Yes, champ. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? He pressed, his eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt. I promise, I said firmly. Milo threw his arms around my neck, and over his shoulder I saw Harrison wipe away a tear. The moment crystallized something I'd been feeling but hadn't fully acknowledged. This wasn't just about Harrison and me anymore. This was about the three of us building something lasting. Later that night, after Harrison had tucked Milo into bed, we sat on his balcony overlooking the city. The lights stretched out endlessly, each one representing a life, a story, a possibility. I've been thinking, Harrison said, intertwining his fingers with mine, about the future, about us. My heart rate picked up. What about it? I want to do this right, he said, turning to face me fully. I want to build something real with you, Peter. Not rush. Not force anything. But also not hold back out of fear. I want that too, I admitted. I've spent so long protecting myself that I forgot what it felt like to actually connect with someone. Then let's make a deal, Harrison proposed. No more hiding. No more running. We face whatever comes together. I squeezed his hand. Together. The word felt like a vow. A promise that extended beyond just the two of us. It included Milo. Included the life we were building. Included every challenge and joy that would come our way. As we sat there in comfortable silence, I realized something profound. I'd spent years believing I didn't deserve this kind of happiness. That family was something other people had. But Harrison and Milo had shown me that family wasn't about blood or history. It was about choice. About showing up. About love given freely and received with gratitude. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was living, and it was more beautiful than I'd ever imagined. Months passed. Harrison, Milo, and I had become a proper family unit. Harrison adjusted his work schedule so he could spend more time with both Milo and me. We spent weekends at parks, watched movies together, and enjoyed simple dinners that felt more luxurious than any expensive restaurant. Milo was thriving at school, and his confidence had completely transformed. He openly called me Papa Peter now, and hearing it warmed my heart every single time. Harrison and I were officially in a relationship, though we hadn't made it public yet. We wanted to ensure Milo felt completely secure first. But at home we were open with our affection. Simple touches, holding hands, gentle kisses when Milo wasn't watching. One evening while Milo was playing with his toys in his room, Harrison called me into his study. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling slightly nervous. Harrison smiled and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath completely stopped. "Peter," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "I know we've only been together for a relatively short time, but I've never been more certain about anything in my life than I am about this." My eyes filled with tears. "You saved Milo's and my life. You made us into a family. And I want to be with you forever. Every day. Every moment." He paused, emotion filling his eyes. "Will you stay with me always? Will you marry me?" I laughed through my tears. "Yes. Yes, Harrison. I'll marry you." Harrison slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into a tight embrace. We were both crying, happy tears. "I love you, Peter," he whispered. "I love you too, Harrison," I answered. Just then Milo came running into the room, probably hearing our emotional voices. "What happened? Is everything okay?" Harrison picked him up and we both hugged him. "Everything is perfect, son," Harrison said. "Peter is officially becoming your papa now. We're getting married." Milo's eyes lit up like stars. "Really? Uncle Peter will stay with us forever now?" "Yes, champ," I said, ruffling his hair. "Forever." Milo gave us both a tight hug, his giggles filling the entire room with warmth. The three of us stood there, a complete family. Imperfect, but perfect for each other. Months later, we had a simple ceremony. Just a few close friends and Milo. He was the ring bearer, so excited that he nearly tripped walking down the aisle. Everyone laughed and the moment was perfect. When Harrison kissed me, it was gentle, loving, and every fear, every insecurity inside me melted away. We settled into our life together. I still ran my studio, but now Harrison and Milo visited frequently. Sometimes Harrison even joined the classes, and we'd all dance together, awkward, funny moments that brought us closer. One night, after Milo had fallen asleep, Harrison and I stood on the balcony watching the city lights. "You know," Harrison said, holding my hand, "I never thought I could be this happy." I looked at him and smiled. Neither did I. He pulled me close and embraced me. "Thank you, Peter, for coming into mine and Milo's life." "Thank you," I whispered back, "for giving me a family." And in that moment, under the stars, in my soulmate's arms, I knew I had finally come home. The wedding planning had been surprisingly stress-free. We'd both wanted something intimate and meaningful rather than extravagant. Harrison's initial instinct had been to hire the best wedding planner in the city, but I'd convinced him that we should plan it ourselves, make it truly ours. We chose a small garden venue, decorated with simple white flowers and string lights. The guest list included Harrison's business partner Marcus and his wife, a few of my longtime students and their families, and Milo's teacher who'd watched him transform over the past year. The ceremony itself was brief but powerful. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Milo had shouted "No way!" with such conviction that everyone burst into laughter. It perfectly captured the joy of the day, unscripted, genuine, full of love. Our honeymoon was a weekend trip to a cabin by the lake. The three of us together. Milo caught his first fish, and Harrison's attempt to cook it resulted in us ordering pizza instead. We stayed up late roasting marshmallows, and Milo fell asleep between us under the stars. "This is what I always wanted," Harrison murmured, watching Milo sleep. "Not the boardrooms or the deals. This. Just this. You have it now?" I said softly. "We all do." Back home, we merged our lives completely. I moved into Harrison's penthouse, though we made sure to create a space that felt like mine too. My books on the shelves, my photos on the walls, my presence in every room. The studio continued to thrive, but with Harrison's support I was able to hire an assistant instructor, which gave me more flexibility. We talked about eventually opening a second location, maybe creating a non-profit to offer free classes to underprivileged kids. Milo started calling me Papa without the Peter attached, which felt like the final piece clicking into place. We had family dinners every night, helped with homework, attended school events together. The other parents initially had questions. Two fathers was still relatively uncommon in our area, but Milo's happiness spoke louder than any prejudice. One particularly difficult day, when Milo came home upset because a classmate had made a comment about his family being weird, Harrison and I sat him down together. "Some people don't understand different kinds of families," I explained gently. "But that doesn't make our family any less real or important. Our family is built on love," Harrison added, "and that's the strongest foundation there is." Milo hugged us both tightly. "I think our family is the best family," he declared with the absolute certainty only a child could possess. Seasons changed, bringing new rhythms to our life together. We celebrated holidays with traditions we created ourselves. Elaborate breakfast pancakes on Sundays, movie nights on Fridays, volunteering at the local shelter once a month as a family. Standing on the balcony one anniversary evening, watching Milo play in his room while Harrison held me close, I marveled at how much my life had transformed. The lonely dance instructor who'd once believed family was something other people had now had everything he'd never dared to dream of. "What are you thinking about?" Harrison asked, kissing my temple. "Just how lucky I am," I said honestly. "How lucky we all are. Luck had nothing to do with it," Harrison replied. "This was meant to be. You, me, Milo. We found each other exactly when we needed to." And as the city lights twinkled below us, as our son's laughter drifted from inside, as my husband's arms held me secure, I finally understood what home truly meant. It wasn't a place. It was people. It was love. It was this moment and every moment that would follow. We were home. Finally, completely, perfectly home.